This is the Dhammapada, 423 teachings from the Buddha, spoken slowly, without urgency. Get comfortable, listen straight through, or return across many nights, whichever feels right. These words have waited 2,500 years. They'll wait for you too. 25 centuries ago, a prince named Siddhartha left everything, not because he hated his life, because something in him knew there had to be more than pleasure and distraction. He sat beneath a tree and refused to move until he understood why we suffer. One morning, as the star appeared, he saw it clearly. The insight wasn't complicated. We suffer because we want things to stay the same, but nothing does. We suffer because we cling to what feels good and push away what doesn't. We suffer because we believe we're separate from everything else. But there's a way through. The Dhammapada, the path of truth, is what his students remembered. Not philosophy, not rules, just clear seeing. These verses were meant to be heard, not analyzed, to settle into you like rain into earth. No belief required, no particular background needed. Just listen. Pause when you need to. Fall asleep if that's what comes. This isn't a test. Let's begin together. We start where the Buddha started, with the mind and what it creates. Picture two gardens, side by side. Same soil, same sunlight, same rain. In one, someone plants seeds of kindness, small words of encouragement, moments of patience, helping hands. In the other, someone plants complaints, resentments, the sharp pleasure of being right. By summer's end, one garden feeds everyone who passes. The other chokes itself with thorns. The Buddha said, "We are what we think. Everything we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world." Not, you become what you think, someday, eventually, if you're good enough. No, you are what you think, right now. The thought creates the reality before the action even happens. There was a commuter in a city not unlike yours. Every morning, same train, same faces, same irritation at the crowding and delays. He'd think, these people are in my way. Why can't they move faster? I shouldn't have to deal with this. And every morning his jaw would tighten, his chest would constrict, and he'd arrive at work already exhausted from a battle no one else was fighting. One Tuesday, nothing special about it, he had a different thought. Just, we're all trying to get somewhere. That's it. We're all trying to get somewhere. The train was just as crowded. The delays were just as long. But he arrived calm. His colleague asked if he'd changed medications. He hadn't changed his circumstances. He'd changed the seed he planted in his mind that morning. And it grew into a different day, entirely. The Buddha continues, if you speak or act with a confused mind, Suffering follows you, like the wheel of a cart follows the ox that pulls it. But if you speak or act with a clear mind, happiness follows you, like a shadow that never leaves. This isn't poetry. It's mechanics. Cause and effect, as reliable as gravity. Someone insults you. You think, he humiliated me, she wronged me, they defeated me, he took what was mine. Hold those thoughts close. Rehearse them. Let them become your identity, and you'll never be free of hatred. Never. The hatred becomes who you are. But if you don't hold those thoughts, if you let them pass like clouds across an open sky, hatred has nothing to feed on. It dies of starvation. Hatred never ends through hatred. Hatred ends through love. This is the ancient law, and it hasn't changed. Not because love is nicer or more spiritual, because hatred perpetuates itself, and love doesn't. You can see it in families, in nations, in the comment sections of the internet. Someone must stop returning blow for blow, or the violence never ends. Most people don't know this. They live in the world, quarreling endlessly, thinking winning the argument matters. But those who know this truth don't quarrel, not because they're weak, because they're awake. Every hour of every day, you face this fork in the path. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Which seed do you plant? Your child spills milk for the third time. Which seed? The news fills you with rage at injustice. Which seed? You're not choosing once. You're choosing constantly. And what grows in your inner garden becomes the atmosphere you live in. The Buddha described two types of people with stark clarity: those who live for pleasure, whose minds lack harmony, who ignore moderation in eating, who are lazy and lack energy. These are shaken by temptation, like a weak tree is shaken by wind. But those who don't chase every pleasure, whose minds are in harmony, who practice moderation, who have faith and energy, these stand firm against temptation, like a mountain stands firm against wind. Notice he didn't say, never feel pleasure, or suffer constantly to prove your worth. He said, don't live for pleasure. Don't make it your compass, your God, your reason for being. There's a difference between enjoying your morning coffee and needing your morning coffee to feel human, between appreciating comfort and demanding comfort at all times, between pleasure as a guest in your life and pleasure as a tyrant. Some people wear robes that look holy but live with impure hearts, without self-control or truth. They're not worthy of the robes, the Buddha said. But those who are free from impurity, grounded in virtue, who live with self-control and truth, they are worthy. It's not about the costume. It's about the seed you're actually planting when no one's watching. And once we see these two paths, one that leads to suffering, one that leads away from it, the question becomes, how do we stay awake enough to choose? Buddha called it vigilance, but not the vigilance of a security guard scanning for threats. More like the vigilance of a mother listening for her child's breath in the dark. Attention without tension. Presence without panic. Vigilance is the path to the deathless, he said. Carelessness is the path to death. The vigilant never die. The careless are already dead. Strong words. What did he mean? Think of it this way. How much of your life have you been actually present for? Really here? Experiencing it? Or were you somewhere else? Replaying yesterday, rehearsing tomorrow, numbing out with whatever was handy. The careless live their whole lives asleep. They move through decades on autopilot, and when death comes, they realize they were never really alive. The vigilant are alive now, in this moment, which is the only moment that ever exists. The wise understand this. The Buddha taught. They rejoice in vigilance, delighting in the realm of the noble ones. They meditate with steady effort, persevering, and experience nirvana, the highest happiness, the supreme peace. It's 3 a.m. The baby is crying again. A mother stands in the dark nursery, bone-tired, touched out, running on empty. She has a choice. She can think, I can't do this anymore. This is too hard. I'm failing. Other mothers don't struggle like this, and spiral into despair. Or she can think, this is hard right now. I'm here. We're both here. This moment will pass. And stay present with what is. Same dark room. Same crying baby. Two completely different experiences. One drowning, one staying afloat. Or the professional who's been working for 12 hours straight, deadline looming, emails multiplying faster than he can answer them. He can panic. I'm going to fail. I'm going to get fired. I'm not good enough, and lose what little focus he has left. Or he can pause, take one breath, and think, one thing at a time. What's the next right action? Vigilance isn't about never struggling. It's about being awake inside the struggle. The Buddha said, through effort, vigilance, discipline, and self-control, the wise one makes an island that no flood can overwhelm. The island metaphor is precise. When floods come, and they will come, you need high ground you've prepared in advance. You can't build an island in the middle of the storm. The practice is now, in the ordinary moments, when nothing dramatic is happening. Wake up a little earlier. Notice your breath. Feel your feet on the ground. Taste your food. These small acts of presence build the island, stone by stone. Then when grief hits, when panic comes, when the diagnosis arrives, you have somewhere to stand. Not invulnerable, but not swept away. In the old stories, Indra became king of the gods through vigilance. Indra wasn't the strongest or the most talented. He was the most awake, the one who paid attention when others drifted. And that quality, simple, sustained awareness, lifted him above everyone else. What does that mean for you? It means the game isn't rigged toward the naturally gifted or the lucky. It's available to anyone willing to stay present. The gods praise vigilance, the Buddha said. They always condemn carelessness. The monk who delights in vigilance and fears carelessness advances like fire, burning through obstacles, both great and small. That image of fire is important, not destructive fire, purifying fire. The kind that burns away what doesn't serve you, leaving what's essential. The negligent will never reach awakening, the Buddha warned. They're close to nirvana already, if only they'd wake up to it. But what exactly are we watching? What requires this steady attention? The mind, always the mind. The Buddha described it a dozen different ways, trying to capture something essentially uncapturable. The mind is restless, hard to guard, hard to control. The wise one straightens it like a fletcher straightens an arrow. Like a fish pulled from water, thrashing on dry land, desperate to escape, so does the mind thrash when trying to escape the realm of death and craving. The mind moves, formless and subtle, landing wherever it wants. Those who calm the mind find happiness, the Buddha said. Not control it, calm it. Like calming a frightened animal, you don't shout at it or wrestle it into submission. You speak softly. You wait. You offer it safety until it settles on its own. There was a meditation student, maybe you know her, maybe you've been her, who sat down to meditate with the best intentions. She'd read the books, set up the cushion, downloaded the app. She was ready. She closed her eyes and tried to focus on her breath. Within seconds, her mind was making a grocery list. She noticed, brought it back. Now it was replaying an argument from 3 days ago, rewriting what she should have said. She noticed, brought it back. Now it was planning vacation, fantasizing about quitting her job, wondering if she'd left the stove on. After 10 minutes, she opened her eyes, frustrated. My mind won't behave, she told her teacher. I can't make it stay still. The teacher smiled. You think the mind is supposed to obey you. That's like thinking the weather should obey you. The mind wanders. That's what minds do. Your job isn't to stop it from wandering. Your job is to notice when it wanders and gently bring it back. How many times? She asked. As many times as it wanders, he said. 10,000 times if necessary. That's the practice. The Buddha taught, the mind is invisible, moving alone, incorporeal, dwelling in the cave of the heart. Those who subdue it are freed from the bonds of death. The cave of the heart, what a beautiful image. Your thoughts live there, in darkness, mostly unseen, even by you. But they run your entire life. Someone whose mind is unsteady, who doesn't know the true teaching, whose confidence wavers, their wisdom never becomes complete. But one whose mind is not flooded by desire, not afflicted by hate, who has transcended both good and evil. For that one who is awake, there is no fear. Here's what the Buddha understood. There's a gap between thought and action. A space, however tiny, where choice lives. The thought arises, I want to yell at this person. In the gap you can notice, oh, anger is here. You don't have to yell. The thought isn't the action. The thought arises, I need another drink, another cookie, another hour of scrolling. In the gap you can notice, oh, craving is here. You don't have to obey it. Guarding the mind means becoming aware of that gap and learning to live in it. Not suppressing thoughts, seeing them clearly and choosing how to respond. Knowing this body is fragile as a clay pot, the Buddha said, make your mind like a fortress. Fight craving with wisdom's weapon. Guard what you've won and never rest. This body won't last long, he continued. Cast aside, it will lie on the ground like a useless log. Whatever harm an enemy can do to an enemy, or a hater to another hater, far worse is the harm from a wrongly directed mind. But a well-directed mind does you more good than your mother, your father, or any other relative could ever do. Because no one else can think for you. No one else can choose the seeds you plant. This work is yours alone. And this mind of ours creates everything, including the world we'll wake up to tomorrow. Think of actions as flowers. Some you gather to make beautiful garlands. Some you plant as seeds that will bloom later. Either way, you're always choosing which flowers to cultivate. The Buddha asked, who will conquer this world, and the world of the gods, and the world of death? Who will find the Dhammapada, the well-taught path of truth, like someone skilled in flowers, finds the most beautiful bloom? His answer, the student will, the disciple on the path, the one who practices, not the master who's already arrived, the one still learning, still trying, still showing up. That means you, if you choose it. Right now, exactly as you are. The student will conquer this world, and the world of the gods and death. The student will find the well-taught Dhammapada like one skilled in flowers finds the most beautiful one. Then the Buddha offered an image both beautiful and stark. Knowing this body is like foam, understanding its mirage, like nature, breaking off the flowery arrows of craving, one goes unseen by the king of death. Foam on water looks substantial, but touch it, and it dissolves. A mirage appears real from a distance, but walk toward it, and there's nothing there. That's this body, this life. Everything we think is solid and permanent. Death sweeps away the one who gathers only the flowers of sensual pleasure, their mind distracted, like a flood sweeps away a sleeping village. How many people live this way? chasing the next pleasure, the next comfort, the next distraction, and then they're gone, having never woken up to what was actually here. Death overcomes one still longing for more, their desires unsatisfied, gathering only pleasures. But there's another way. Watch how a bee takes nectar from a flower without harming the flower's beauty or fragrance. Just takes what it needs and moves on. This is how a sage moves through the world. You can enjoy things without clinging to them. You can participate in the world without being enslaved by it. The flower remains beautiful. You remain free. Don't spend time thinking about what others have done or failed to do, the Buddha said. Think about what you yourself have done or failed to do. This cuts through so much suffering. The endless scorekeeping. Who's better? Who's worse? Who got away with what? None of it matters. Your life is your life. Your actions are your responsibility. That's the whole field of play. Like a beautiful flower with color but no fragrance are the fine words of one who doesn't act on them. But like a beautiful flower with both color and fragrance are the fine words of one who does act on them. It's not about talking beautifully about compassion while being cruel. Not about posting inspirational quotes while treating people terribly. The words and the actions must match, or the words are just noise. Just as someone can make many garlands from a heap of flowers, the Buddha said, so you can do much good in this life you've been given. One action at a time, one word, one thought. The garland grows. The fragrance of flowers doesn't travel against the wind. Not sandalwood, not jasmine, not any flower. But the fragrance of the good travels everywhere, even against the wind. Your reputation might not reach everywhere. Your name might be forgotten. But the actual effect of your kindness, the real impact of your presence, spreads in ways you'll never see or measure. A small kindness to a stranger, who then treats their family better, who then are gentler with their students, who then grow up to be different people. The ripples go on against every wind. Better than the scent of sandalwood or jasmine, better than the scent of lotus, better than all of these is the scent of virtue. Faint is the scent of sandalwood and jasmine, but the scent of the virtuous rises to the gods, supreme among scents. Death cannot find the path of those rich in virtue, who live in vigilance, freed by perfect knowledge. Some gather flowers wisely, making their lives beautiful and useful, planting seeds that will bloom long after they're gone. Others chase pleasures that wither in their hands, scattering petals that blow away before morning. Let's be honest, we've all been the fool. Not sometimes, often, maybe even this morning. The Buddha wasn't pointing at other people when he talked about foolishness. He was describing a condition we all know intimately, the fog of not seeing clearly, of stumbling through life half asleep, convinced we understand when we don't. Long is the night for the sleepless, he said. Long is the road for the weary. Long is the cycle of birth and death for fools who don't know the true teaching. Think about a night you couldn't sleep. Maybe worry kept you up, or pain, or the neighbor's party. 3 a.m. feels like it will never end. 4 a.m. stretches into eternity. That's what the Buddha meant by a long night. Time becomes torture when you're trapped in it. The fool's whole life is like that. Everything takes longer, hurts more, leads nowhere. Not because the universe is punishing them, because they keep walking in circles, convinced each circle is progress. There was a man who spent his life accumulating. Better job, bigger house, nicer car, more impressive title. He had a detailed mental list of everything he owned and everything he was owed. One day, sitting in his expensive office, he had a thought that stopped him cold. I don't own any of this. It owns me. The house he was so proud of, he worked 60-hour weeks to pay for it and barely spent time there. The title on his business card? It consumed his health and his relationships. His children? He thought of them as his, but they were growing up with or without his attention. And then the deeper realization, he didn't even own himself. His thoughts ran him. His habits controlled him. His fears decided everything. He was a passenger in his own life, convinced he was driving. The Buddha said, "These are my sons. This is my wealth." Thus the fool worries. But he doesn't even own himself. How can he own sons or wealth? The sting of that teaching isn't cruelty. It's precision. We spend our lives anxious about things we can't actually possess. People, objects, outcomes, time itself. And in that anxiety, we miss what's actually here. If a fool recognizes his foolishness, the Buddha taught, he is wise at least, to that extent. But a fool who thinks himself wise, that fool is truly a fool. Here's the paradox. The moment you realize you don't know becomes the beginning of wisdom. The moment you're certain you know becomes the reinforcement of foolishness. Even if a fool lives with a wise person their whole life, they don't understand the teaching any more than a spoon understands the taste of soup. That image is so specific. The spoon sits in the soup. The spoon delivers the soup. The spoon is essential to the soup-eating process. But the spoon never tastes it, never knows what it's carrying. You can be surrounded by wisdom, books, teachers, opportunities, and still understand nothing if you're not actually paying attention, if you're just going through the motions, if you think you already know. The fool who imagines he is wise lives with himself as his own enemy, the Buddha said, always doing harmful things that eventually bear bitter fruit. Watch how that works. Someone lies because it's easier than telling the truth. The lie works, so they lie again. Small lies become bigger lies. Eventually, the whole structure of their life rests on fabrication, and they can't remember what's real anymore. Or someone uses anger as a weapon because it gets results. People back down when you rage. It feels like power. Until everyone who loves you learns to stay away, and you're powerful and alone. An action isn't good, the Buddha said, if you have to regret it afterward, if its fruit is tears and remorse. An action is good if you don't regret it afterward, if its fruit is joy and happiness. Simple test. How do you feel the next morning? Not in the moment of impulse, the next day, the next week, when the consequences arrive. Evil seems sweet to the fool until it ripens, the Buddha warned. When it ripens, the fool suffers. Think of someone eating an entire cake. Delicious for a while. Then the stomachache comes. Then the shame. Then the pattern repeats, because the lesson wasn't learned. Month after month, a fool might eat only a blade of grass. Their merit wouldn't equal 1/16 of one who understands the truth, the Buddha said. Harsh, but he's making a point about effectiveness, not value. You can suffer elaborately, perform extreme austerities, make dramatic gestures, and still be walking in circles if you don't actually understand what you're doing or why. A harmful action doesn't immediately bear fruit, the Buddha taught. Like milk doesn't curdle instantly. It follows the fool, burning like a fire covered with ashes. That's the dangerous part, the delay between action and consequence. Do something harmful and nothing bad happens right away, so you think you got away with it. You do it again, still nothing. The fire is burning underneath the whole time, invisible, until suddenly everything's ablaze and you can't remember how it started. The Buddha described the fool's relationship with knowledge almost tenderly. Whatever knowledge a fool acquires, it only harms him, destroying whatever good qualities he has, splitting his head open. Meaning, a fool uses knowledge as a weapon against himself, gets just enough information to be dangerous, just enough skill to create bigger problems, just enough confidence to make catastrophic decisions. The fool suffers not knowing, suffers in the wanting, the grasping, the endless search for something to fill, the emptiness that can't be filled from outside. The wise see differently. Wisdom isn't complicated. It's seeing what's actually there, instead of what you wish was there, or fear might be there, or remember being there once. Just what is. Even if a perceptive person lives with a wise one for only a moment, the Buddha said, they quickly understand the teaching, like the tongue knows the taste of soup. The tongue doesn't need convincing. It doesn't need to study the soup's recipe or history. It just tastes. Direct experience, immediate knowing. That's wisdom, not accumulated information, but clear perception. There was a young woman struggling with a decision about whether to leave a relationship. She'd been agonizing for months, making lists, asking friends, reading articles, going in circles. Every conversation ended the same way. I just don't know what to do. She met someone older, someone who'd lived through some things, described the whole situation, the good parts, the painful parts, the confusion, waited for advice. The older woman was quiet for a moment, then asked, "When you wake up in the morning, before your mind starts explaining and justifying, what does your body know?" The young woman started to answer, then stopped. Started again, stopped again. Then she began to cry, because her body had been telling her the answer for months, and she'd been talking herself out of listening to it. That's the difference. The fool collects opinions and theories. The wise one sees what's actually happening. The Buddha said, "As rain pours through a poorly thatched roof, so passion pours through an untrained mind. As rain doesn't pour through a well-thatched roof, so passion doesn't pour through a well-trained mind." A well-trained mind isn't one that knows a lot of facts. It's one that can see clearly without being overwhelmed by what it sees. Can feel anger without becoming anger. Can notice fear without being ruled by fear. The wise person is unshaken by praise or blame, the Buddha taught, like a solid rock is unshaken by the wind. Not because they don't care what people think, because they know who they are, regardless of what people think. Praise doesn't make you better. Blame doesn't make you worse. You're just what you are, doing what you're doing, learning as you go. Like a deep, clear, calm lake, the wise become serene when they hear the teaching. Notice, they become serene, not because they were already perfect, but because they heard something true and let it settle into them, like rain into earth. Good people give up attachment to everything, the Buddha said. They don't chatter about what they crave, touched by happiness or pain. They remain even. That doesn't mean not feeling. It means not being tossed around by every feeling like a leaf in wind. You can feel grief without drowning in it. You can feel joy without clinging to it desperately, terrified it will leave. The wise don't seek children, wealth, or power for themselves or others, the Buddha taught. They don't prosper through wrongdoing. They are virtuous, wise, and righteous. This isn't about having nothing. It's about not defining yourself by what you have, not sacrificing your integrity to get more, not measuring your worth by your accumulation. Few cross to the far shore, the Buddha said. Most people just run up and down this shore. But those who follow the well-taught teaching cross over, beyond death's realm. Two shores, the one we know and the one we can barely imagine. Most people spend their whole lives on familiar ground, running faster and faster, thinking speed equals progress, never realizing there's another shore entirely, where different rules apply. Leaving the dark path behind and cultivating the bright, the wise leave home for the homeless state, seeking joy in detachment where pleasure is hard to find. Homelessness here doesn't mean living under a bridge. It means not being defined by your circumstances, not needing everything arranged just right to be okay, not carrying your identity like a house you're trapped inside. Free from possessions and desires, cleaning away the stains of the mind, these people shine with pure radiance, enjoying, even in this life, the deathless freedom of nirvana. The wise create islands through clear seeing, through not lying to themselves, through paying attention. Solid ground that holds when everything else is flooding. But what holds them there, on those islands they've built? What keeps them from drifting back to the familiar shore, back to the old patterns, back to sleep? Freedom, the actual taste of it. The Buddha describes someone who has completed the journey, who has no more sorrow, who is completely free, who has broken all bonds. For such a one, there is no more burning. No more burning. What an image. Think of how much of ordinary life is a kind of fever. The fever of wanting, of comparing, of never having enough, of always being slightly dissatisfied, of needing things to be different than they are. That fever just stops. Not because you've achieved everything you wanted, because you've stopped needing achievement to feel okay. You've arrived home, and home was here all along. The mindful are always striving, the Buddha said. They don't delight in settling down. Like swans leaving a lake, they abandon home after home. There was a swan that lived on a small pond for years. Good pond, plenty of food, safe from predators. One morning in autumn, something shifted. The air changed. Something in the swan's body knew. Time to go. It didn't hate the pond, wasn't running from danger. Just the season had changed, and staying would mean dying. So it flew. That's the freedom the Buddha described. Not escaping from something, but moving toward what's actually happening, what's actually needed, what's actually true. Not weighed down by the past or anxious about the future. Just responding clearly to what is. Those who have no accumulation, who eat with full understanding, whose range is the freedom of emptiness without signs, their path is as hard to trace as that of birds through the sky. Birds don't leave footprints in air. You can't track where they've been. That's what happens when you stop clinging. You move through life without creating the heavy tracks of, I did this, I deserve that, remember when what about me? Someone whose passions are stilled, who is free from clinging to food, whose range is emptiness and freedom. Their path is hard to trace, like birds in the sky. Even the gods envy the one whose senses are controlled, like horses well tamed by the charioteer, who is free from pride and free from corruption. Free from corruption doesn't mean never making mistakes. It means not being rotted from the inside by resentment, greed, self-deception, all the ways we slowly poison ourselves. Steady as the earth, reliable as a pillar, clear as a lake without mud, for such a one, there is no more wandering in the cycle of suffering. Their mind is at peace, their speech is at peace, their actions are at peace, freed by right knowledge, completely calm. Free from blind faith because they've seen the uncreated, cut the bonds, finished with both merit and demerit, thrown away all desire. That person is greatest among people. This freedom seems far away when you're in the thick of struggle, when your mind is racing and your heart is tight and everything feels like too much. It seems like something only saints achieve, only after decades of practice, only if you're special somehow. But even one moment of actually being present, not thinking about being present, but actually here, shows you what's possible. One moment of not needing anything to be different. One moment of enough. That moment is the door. You can walk through it anytime you remember it's there. Better than 1,000 useless words is one word that brings peace. Better than 1,000 useless verses is one verse that brings peace. Better than 100 useless poems is one line of poetry that brings peace. The Buddha kept hammering this point, repeating it with slight variations, making sure it landed. More isn't better. Better is better. We live in a world that counts everything. Steps, calories, followers, hours worked, books read, goals achieved. More, faster, bigger, longer. The entire culture runs on accumulation. But the Buddha said, stop counting. Start paying attention. If someone conquered 1,000 men in battle 1,000 times, and another person conquered only himself, that second victory would be the greater. Think about what conquering 1,000 men meant in the Buddha's time. You'd be famous, legendary. Songs would be written about you. Your name would echo through generations. And the Buddha said, that's nothing compared to someone who wins the battle against their own worst impulses. Nobody sees that victory. There's no trophy, no applause, no recognition. It happens in the dark at 3 a.m., when you choose not to send the angry email, when you decide not to have the drink, when you stop the spiral of self-hatred before it takes you under. That's the real war, and it's fought in moments so small, they seem insignificant. It's Tuesday afternoon. You're tired. Someone says something dismissive in a meeting, and you feel the heat rise in your chest. Your mind instantly scripts the cutting response, the perfect comeback that will put them in their place. Old you would have said it, would have enjoyed the flash of power, the momentary satisfaction of winning, then spent the rest of the day feeling slightly sick, replaying it, justifying it, wondering if you went too far. New you, the one who's learning to conquer yourself, takes a breath, feels the urge, doesn't act on it, says something neutral or says nothing at all. Nobody notices. Nobody congratulates you. but you just won a battle that matters more than any external victory. Greater than defeating yourself in battle, the Buddha said, is defeating yourself. Neither gods nor demigods, neither death nor the forces of corruption can turn that victory into defeat. Because once you've tasted the freedom of not being controlled by every impulse, every fear, every craving, no one can take that from you. External circumstances can change. You can lose money, status, relationships. But the capacity to choose your response, that's yours. Month after month, someone might make offerings for 100 years. The Buddha taught. But if they honored a self-conquered person for even a moment, that brief honor would be worth more than 100 years of offerings. Or 100 years of tending the sacred fire in the forest, less valuable than a moment of reverence for someone who's won the inner battle. Why? Because the self-conquered person shows you what's actually possible. They're proof that you don't have to be swept along by every thought and feeling, that there's another way to be human. When you meet someone like that, truly meet them, not just see them from a distance, something shifts. You realize the prison you've been living in wasn't locked from the outside. And whoever honors the worthy ones gains 4 blessings. The Buddha said, long life, beauty, happiness, and strength. Not magic, natural consequence. When you orient yourself toward wisdom instead of chaos, life reorganizes itself around that orientation. Better than 100 years lived in vice without meditation is one day lived virtuously in deep contemplation. Better than 100 years lived in ignorance without meditation is one day lived wisely in deep contemplation. Better than 100 years without seeing life's rise and fall is one day seeing things as they actually are. Better than 100 years without seeing the deathless is one day seeing what doesn't die. Better than 100 years without seeing the supreme truth is one day seeing the highest teaching. He's not exaggerating for effect. He means it literally. One day actually awake is worth more than a century sleepwalking. Because in that one day of clear seeing, you understand something that changes everything that comes after. You can't unsee it. Even if you forget for a while, even if you drift back into old patterns, somewhere in you, you know there's another possibility. Think of it like this. You can live in a house for 100 years without ever noticing the door to the garden. One day, someone shows you the door. Even if you don't walk through it right away, even if you only peek out occasionally, your relationship to the house has changed forever. You know it's not the whole world. Better one day awake, seeing what's actually here, feeling what you're actually feeling, choosing what you're actually choosing. Instead of a lifetime of going through the motions, playing the role, following the script someone else wrote. But what pulls us back to sleep? What makes us forget what we've seen? The Buddha said, hasten to do good. Restrain your mind from evil. Whoever is slow to do good Their mind delights in evil. Strong word, evil. We don't like to use it anymore. Sounds dramatic, judgmental, black and white. But the Buddha wasn't talking about cosmic forces of darkness. He was talking about the daily tendency toward harm, harming yourself, harming others, harming the moment you're in by not being present to it. Evil, in his vocabulary, is whatever increases suffering. Good is whatever decreases it. Not complicated. If you do something harmful, don't repeat it, the Buddha said. Don't find pleasure in it. The accumulation of harmful actions leads to pain. If you do something good, repeat it. Take joy in it. The accumulation of good actions leads to happiness. Like filling a water jar drop by drop. You can fill it with poison or with clean water, one drop at a time. Either way, the jar fills. There was someone who thought, my small kindnesses don't matter. I'm not saving the world. I'm not curing diseases or ending wars. I just help my elderly neighbor with groceries sometimes. I let people merge in traffic. I'm patient with the new person at work who keeps asking questions. What difference does any of that make in the grand scheme of things? Here's what they didn't see. The neighbor who feels less alone because someone checks on her. The driver who arrives home less stressed because someone let them in. The new employee who doesn't quit in the first week because someone made them feel welcome. And those people carry that forward in ways you'll never track. The neighbor volunteers at the community center. The driver is gentler with their kids that evening. The employee becomes the patient one for the next new person. Small acts don't stay small. They multiply in directions you can't see. Don't dismiss wrongdoing, thinking, it's just a small thing. It won't affect me. Just as a water jar fills with drops of water, so the fool fills himself with evil, little by little. Don't dismiss good deeds, thinking, it's just a small thing. It won't affect me. Just as a water jar fills with drops of water, so the wise person fills themselves with good, little by little. Karma isn't punishment from the universe. It's cause and effect. Fire burns. That's not personal. It's just what fire does. Water flows downhill. That's gravity, not judgment. Actions have consequences. That's karma, not cosmic bookkeeping. You lie, people stop trusting you, not because the universe is keeping score, but because that's how trust works. You're consistently kind. People feel safe around you. That's not a reward. It's a result. Someone might do wrong and not feel the result immediately. The Buddha taught, just as fresh milk doesn't curdle at once, but it follows them, burning like fire covered by ashes. The delay is what makes it tricky. Do something harmful, and nothing bad happens right away, so you think you got away with it. Do it again. Still nothing. The consequences are building underneath, invisible, like a fire, smoldering in a compost pile. By the time you see the flames, everything's already burning. That's why the Buddha said, hasten to do good. Not anxious, not desperate, but don't wait. Don't think you have unlimited time to get your life together. Don't postpone kindness. Don't delay integrity. The merchant traveling through a dangerous forest with great wealth, but few guards, protects himself carefully, the Buddha said. Someone who loves life avoids poison. Just so, avoid evil. You wouldn't be careless with actual poison. You wouldn't think, just a little bit won't hurt. Why be careless with resentment, gossip, cruelty, dishonesty? They're poison too, just slower acting. A hand without a wound can handle poison safely. Poison doesn't affect where there's no wound. There's no evil for one who doesn't do evil. But whoever wrongs an innocent person, someone pure and blameless, the evil returns to that fool like dust, thrown against the wind. You can't harm someone and have it not affect you, even if they never find out, even if they never retaliate, even if no one ever knows. You know. You carry it. It changes you. Some are reborn in the womb. The Buddha taught. Evildoers go to hell. The righteous go to heaven. But those without defilements reach nirvana. Not locations, states of being. Hell is the state of being consumed by hatred, greed, delusion. You can experience it right here, right now. Heaven is the state of peace, clarity, love. Also available now. Nirvana is beyond both. Complete freedom from the whole system of craving and aversion. You don't wait until death to find out where you're going. You're creating it moment by moment, choice by choice, drop by drop. There's no hiding from your own actions, the Buddha said. Not in the sky, not in the ocean's depths, not in a mountain cave. Nowhere in the world can you escape the results of your deeds. And nowhere in the world can you hide from death either. Not in the sky, not in the ocean's depths, not in a mountain cave. Death finds everyone. So the question isn't whether you'll face consequences or whether you'll die. Both are certain. The question is, what are you doing with the time you have? What are you filling the jar with? What traces are you leaving? Good and evil leave traces in your mind, in your body, in the way you move through the world. They shape you from the inside out, making you into someone who either adds to the suffering or helps relieve it. But both the person who does good and the person who does harm must eventually face the same fundamental fact of existence. All beings tremble before danger. All fear death. When you see yourself in others, you neither kill nor cause killing. The Buddha starts with the most basic fact. Everyone wants to live. Not just you, everyone. The spider you're about to crush, the mosquito buzzing near your ear, the person who just cut you off in traffic. Every living thing is clinging to existence with everything it has. All beings fear danger. Life is dear to all. Seeing yourself in others, you neither kill nor cause killing. This isn't about becoming perfect or achieving some impossible standard of purity. It's about recognition, that desperate desire to keep living that you feel. Everything else feels it too. There's a moment that changes some people. Maybe you've had it. You're about to kill something, a bug maybe, or you're holding a weapon, or you're about to say words that will destroy someone. And you pause, just for a second. And in that pause, you see it clearly. This thing wants to live as much as I do. A man was in his garage, about to spray pesticide on a wasp nest. He'd been stung before, hated wasps, had every justification. The spray was in his hand. The nest was right there. He watched one wasp for a moment, just watched it, saw how carefully it was building, how focused it was, how it was just trying to create a home and keep its young safe. Same thing he was doing, different scale. He put the spray down, not because he suddenly loved wasps or thought they were harmless, because he couldn't unsee the similarity. Both of them just trying to survive, just trying to protect what mattered. He ended up relocating the nest instead of destroying it. More work, more risk, less convenient. But something in him wouldn't let him kill it after he'd actually seen it. Whoever seeks their own happiness by hurting others, who also want happiness, will not find happiness after death. Whoever seeks their own happiness without hurting others, who also want happiness, will find happiness after death. Not mystical, mechanical. You can't build your peace on someone else's suffering. It doesn't work, even if it looks like it's working temporarily. The foundation is wrong, and eventually, everything built on it collapses. Never speak harsh words, the Buddha said. Those you abuse will abuse you back. Angry words hurt, and anger will return to you. If you can make yourself still like a broken gong that no longer rings, you've found peace. You've reached nirvana, where there is no more quarreling. The broken gong, such a precise image, not suppressing sound, just no longer vibrating with every strike. Someone says something cruel, and instead of ringing with anger, instead of retaliating, you're quiet. Not dead, not passive, just not adding to the noise. That's what transformed anger looks like. Not pretending you're not hurt, not swallowing it and letting it poison you, just not passing it on, not keeping the cycle going. The gong can still be struck. People will still try to provoke you, hurt you, get a reaction from you. But when you've genuinely released the need to retaliate, to defend, to prove yourself right, the sound just doesn't happen anymore. It's freedom, not suppression. Suppression is holding the gong still while it desperately wants to ring. Freedom is the gong no longer needing to ring at all. As a cowherd drives cattle to pasture, the Buddha said, so old age and death drive living beings onward. Bleak image, but true. You're being driven toward death every day, like cattle being herded. The question is, are you awake for the journey, or are you just stumbling along, head down, not noticing where you're going? When a fool does evil deeds, they don't realize they're lighting a fire in which they themselves will burn. The person who harms the harmless and pure with weapons will quickly encounter one of 10 things: harsh pain, disaster, bodily injury, serious illness, mental derangement, trouble from the government, terrible accusation, loss of relatives, destruction of wealth, or fire burning their house. After death, they're reborn in hell. Heavy consequences, and the Buddha didn't soften them. Because he'd seen it happen over and over. Harm creates more harm. Violence creates more violence, until the person who started it is drowning in the results of their own actions. We share this fear of death. All of us, everything alive. That shared vulnerability should make us gentler with each other, more careful with the power we have to harm. What lies beyond? Look at this body, the Buddha said. A painted puppet with joints and hinges, plastered together, subject to disease, full of thoughts that never last. This body wastes away, a nest of disease, fragile, disintegrating. Life ends in death, always. Not cheerful words, but not meant to depress you, meant to wake you up. Look at these grey bones scattered about, like gourds thrown away in autumn. What pleasure is there in seeing them? A house of bones is this body, plastered with flesh and blood. In it dwell pride and hypocrisy, old age and death. Even the decorated chariots of kings wear out, the Buddha said. This body too wears out. But the truth of the good never ages. The wise declare this to each other. Everything physical deteriorates. The most beautiful face ages. The strongest body weakens. The sharpest mind dulls. But understanding, real seeing, doesn't fade with the body. It's the only thing worth gathering because it's the only thing you can actually keep. There was someone sitting by a hospital bed, watching their father die, slowly, over days. The body that had seemed so solid, so permanent, was just leaving. Hour by hour, less of him was there. The sharp mind that had intimidated everyone, gone. The strong hands that had built things, still. The personality that had filled every room, fading like a radio signal getting weaker. And sitting there, the son realized, this is happening to me, too, just slower. Every single thing I think is solid and permanent is dissolving, right now, just too slowly to see. It could have been terrifying. It should have been. But instead, something loosened. If this is all temporary, the body, the achievements, the identity, the story about who I am, then what's actually real? What remains when everything else falls away? The question itself was a door opening. For 3 days after the funeral, he couldn't stop thinking about it. Not morbidly, just clearly. His father had worked 70-hour weeks building a business empire, had sacrificed relationships, health, presence with his children. For what? The empire was already being dissolved, sold off to strangers who didn't know or care about the man who built it. The son looked at his own life, the same patterns starting, the same choices being made. Racing toward what? Building what? All of it heading toward the same hospital bed, the same dissolving, the same forgotten empire. That's when he understood what the Buddha meant about this body being a temporary house. You don't own it. You're renting it for an unknown period, and eviction is certain. The Buddha, at his own awakening, spoke directly to the process that creates this body, this life, this endless cycling. Through countless births I wandered, seeking, but never finding the builder of this house. Painful is birth again and again. But now I've seen you, builder. You'll build no more houses. Your rafters are broken, your ridgepole shattered. My mind has attained the unconditioned. Achieved is the end of craving. The builder is craving itself, the force that keeps constructing new identities, new stories, new versions of me that need to be protected and maintained. When you see it clearly, really see how it operates, it loses its power. The house isn't your body, it's the whole structure of self. You keep building and rebuilding, trying to make it permanent when it's designed to fall apart. Watch how you do it. Something good happens, and you immediately build an identity around it. I'm someone who succeeded at this. Something bad happens, and you build another identity. I'm someone this happened to. Each experience becomes another room in the house, another story to maintain. The Buddha's victory wasn't in destroying the house. It was in seeing the builder and saying, "Stop. No more construction. I see what you're doing and I'm not participating anymore." Those who don't live the spiritual life when young, who don't gather treasure while they can, later waste away, like old herons beside a fishless lake. Those who don't live the spiritual life when young, who don't gather treasure while they can, lie around like worn-out bows, sighing about the past. The treasure isn't money or accomplishments. It's clarity. It's seeing truly. It's freedom from the illusions that make you suffer. And you can gather it at any age, any moment. But waiting doesn't make it easier. The old heron by the empty lake, the broken bow lamenting better days. These are images of people who postponed their real lives until it was too late. Not too late to start, but too late to avoid the regret of wasted time. Someone once asked an old monk, "What's the biggest mistake people make?" He said, "Thinking they have time." Not because death might come tomorrow, though it might, because every day you spend asleep is a day you don't get back. Every year you postpone waking up is a year lived in fog. Knowing we'll die, knowing this body is temporary, this life is brief, this moment won't return. How then should we live? If you hold yourself dear, the Buddha said, guard yourself well. Let the wise one keep watch during at least one of the 3 watches of the night. First, establish yourself in what is proper, then teach others. Thus you won't suffer. If you make yourself as you teach others to be, then, well controlled yourself, you may control others. The self is indeed hard to master. You are your own refuge. What other refuge could there be? When you're well trained, you gain a refuge hard to find. This is the teaching that people resist most. You're on your own. Not because no one cares, not because help isn't available, because ultimately, no one else can do your inner work for you. You are your own refuge. What does that actually feel like? It feels like coming home after a long journey and realizing the thing you were searching for was there all along. It feels like standing on ground that doesn't shift, not because circumstances are stable, but because you've found the part of you that's steady, regardless of circumstances. It's not loneliness. It's the opposite. It's discovering that you're not actually separate from everything else, that the refuge inside you connects to something larger than your individual story. The master and the servant both being you, that's the paradox. You train yourself, you discipline yourself, you liberate yourself. No one else can do it, and you can't outsource it. There was someone who spent years blaming everyone else for what was wrong with their life. Parents who didn't understand them, teachers who didn't see their potential, partners who didn't appreciate them, employers who didn't recognize their worth. An endless list of people who had failed them. One day, after another relationship ended the same way all the others had, they had a thought, what if it's me? Not, I'm terrible, or I'm worthless. Just, what if the common factor in all these situations is me, and what if I have some power to change that? Terrifying thought, also liberating. Because if other people were the problem, you were powerless. If you were the problem, or at least part of it, you could do something about it. That's when the real work started. Not blaming themselves instead of others, but taking responsibility for the only thing they could actually control, their own actions, their own responses, their own patterns. They started noticing every relationship ended with the same fight. Different people, different circumstances, but the same dynamic. They'd feel unappreciated, get defensive, shut down emotionally, wait for the other person to apologize first. Then act surprised when the relationship fell apart. Seeing the pattern didn't instantly fix it, but seeing it meant they could start working with it instead of being blindly controlled by it. That's what becoming your own refuge means. Not that you never need help. You do. Not that you figure everything out alone. You won't. But that you stop waiting for someone else to rescue you and start taking responsibility for your own liberation. By oneself is evil done, the Buddha taught. By oneself is one defiled. By oneself is evil left undone. By oneself is one purified. Purity and impurity depend on oneself. No one can purify another. This is the hardest and the most hopeful thing he taught. Hardest because you can't blame anyone else. Most hopeful because you don't have to wait for anyone else to change. The evil you commit is born from yourself, produced by yourself, arising from yourself. It crushes you as a diamond grinds down a hard stone. That image of stone crushing stone, both hard, both seemingly strong, but one destroys the other through constant pressure. Your own harmful patterns, unchecked, will eventually crush the good in you. One whose great corruption spreads like a creeper, choking a tree, does to themselves what their enemies wish for them. The Malava creeper grows over a tree, wraps around it, slowly strangles it. The tree doesn't die from outside attack, it dies from what it allowed to grow on it. That's what happens when you let harmful habits take root and spread. You see it in addiction. Something that started as relief becomes the thing that's killing you. You see it in resentment. Something that started as justified anger becomes a poison you drink daily, expecting someone else to die from it. You see it in workaholism, perfectionism, any pattern that slowly takes over until there's no room left for actual life. Easy to do what's bad for yourself, the Buddha said. What's good for yourself is very hard to do. Why is that? Because bad habits feel good immediately. The relief, the escape, the numbness, the pleasure. Good habits feel hard immediately. The discipline, the discomfort, the delayed gratification. Your mind, untrained, will always choose what feels good now over what's good for you long term. That's not a moral failing. It's how minds work. Training changes the equation, makes the healthy choice easier, the harmful choice less appealing. Those who reject the teaching of the noble ones, who speak wrongly from their own views, produce fruit for their own destruction, like the bamboo that dies when it fruits. The bamboo image is specific. Some species of bamboo flower once in their lifetime, produce seeds, and then die. They create the very thing that ends them. That's what happens when you build your life on wrong understanding. The fruits of your actions eventually destroy the person who created them. Never neglect your own welfare for another's, however great, the Buddha said. Once you know what's good for you, be intent on it. Not selfishness, wisdom. You can't help anyone if you're drowning. You can't give from an empty well. Taking care of yourself isn't preparation for serving others. It's the foundation of being able to serve at all. The flight attendants get it right. Put on your own oxygen mask before helping others. Not because you matter more, because if you pass out, you can't help anyone. The path is yours alone. No one can walk it for you. Your parents can't do it. Your teachers can't do it. Your therapist, your partner, your spiritual guide, they can point, they can encourage, they can walk alongside. But the actual steps, those are yours. So wake up, not tomorrow, not when conditions are perfect, not when you feel ready. Now, with things exactly as they are, exactly as you are. Don't live carelessly, the Buddha said. Don't follow wrong ideas. Don't be attached to the world. Don't sink into it. Wake up. Practice the teaching. Those who do live joyfully, both now and in what comes after. Wake up. Practice the teaching. Don't practice wrongly. Those who practice the teaching live joyfully, both now and in what comes after. The urgency in these words isn't meant to create panic. It's meant to cut through the fog of postponement, the comfortable numbness, the endless loop of "I'll start tomorrow." Look at the world as a bubble, the Buddha said. Look at it as a mirage. Those who see the world this way aren't seen by the King of Death. A bubble, beautiful, iridescent, fascinating. Touch it, and it's gone. A mirage looks like water from a distance, but walk toward it, and there's nothing there. That's everything we think is solid. Money, status, relationships, the story we tell about who we are. Not saying these things don't exist or don't matter. Saying they're not what we think they are. They're temporary, conditional, constantly changing. Building your entire life on them is like building a house on a bubble. Come and look at this world, the Buddha said. It's like a decorated royal carriage. Fools are impressed by it, but the wise see through the show. The painted carriage, gilded, ornate, designed to impress. Everyone stops to stare at it. But it's still just wood and paint, still heading toward the same destination as every other vehicle, still subject to wear and breakdown. There was someone who spent 40 years preparing to live, not living, preparing. First, they had to finish school, then establish a career, then buy a house, then save for retirement. Always the next milestone, the next achievement, the next box to check before real life could begin. At 60, they realized, I've been waiting to start my life, and I've already lived most of it. The books they meant to read, still unread. The places they wanted to visit, still unvisited. The relationships they intended to repair, still broken. The creative work they dreamed of, still undone. All postponed for when I have time, when things settle down, when I'm ready. They weren't ready at 60 either. You're never ready. Ready is a myth we tell ourselves to justify waiting. So they started. Not perfectly, not with ideal circumstances, not with unlimited time and energy. Just started, with what they had, where they were. Called old friends they'd been meaning to call for years. Signed up for the painting class they'd always dismissed as frivolous. Forgave people they'd been holding grudges against. Stopped waiting for permission from some imaginary future version of themselves who had it all figured out. The last 20 years of their life were more fully lived than the first 60. Not because circumstances improved, because they stopped postponing. Those who were once reckless but reformed themselves illuminate the world like the moon freed from clouds. Those who cover their past misdeeds with good deeds illuminate the world like the moon freed from clouds. This world is blind, the Buddha said. Few here see clearly. Like birds escaping from a net, few go to heaven. Most people sleepwalk through their entire lives, born into stories about how things are, what matters, who they're supposed to be, and they never question any of it. Just accept the net as reality and stop noticing they're trapped. How rare to meet someone actually awake, someone not performing their life, but living it. Someone who's questioned everything and arrived at their own understanding, instead of just repeating what they were taught. Some awaken. They become something else entirely. By what path could you lead astray one who is awake? The Buddha asked, whose victory cannot be turned into defeat, whom no one in the world can conquer. By what path could you lead astray one who is awake, who has no craving or entanglement to ensnare them? You can't tempt someone who's genuinely awake, not because they're superhuman or perfect, because they've seen through the game. The carrots you dangle don't interest them anymore. The sticks you threaten them with have lost their power. Buddha means the awakened one, not a god, not a prophet, just someone who woke up. Which means awakening is possible, not reserved for special people, in special circumstances. Even the gods honor the awakened ones, the Buddha said. Those who delight in meditation, who are calm, who find peace in renunciation, who are mindful and fully awake. What does awakened actually feel like? Not in the dramatic moment of enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, in an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. It feels like being completely present for whatever's happening without needing it to be different. Your coffee tastes like coffee, not like a distraction from discomfort. Rain is just rain, not an inconvenience ruining your plans. Difficult feelings arise and pass without consuming you. It feels like the difference between watching a movie and being in the movie. You're still experiencing everything: joy, sorrow, pleasure, pain, but you're not lost in it, not defined by it. There's space around the experience. Someone described it this way: before awakening, I was always somewhere else, planning the future, replaying the past, imagining different scenarios. After awakening, I'm just here. Not all the time. I still drift, still get caught up. But I notice faster, returns sooner, and the returns get easier. Hard to be born as a human being, the Buddha taught. hard to live a mortal life, hard to hear the true teaching, hard to witness the arising of awakened ones. You've already won several lotteries just to be here, born human instead of any other form of life, living in a time when these teachings exist, having access to hear them. The odds of all that aligning are astronomical. Don't waste it scrolling, numbing, sleepwalking. Not to do any evil, the Buddha said, to cultivate good, to purify one's mind. This is the teaching of all Buddhas. 3 lines that contain everything. Stop harming, start helping, clean your mind. Simple to understand, lifetime to practice. Patience is the supreme austerity the Buddha taught. Nirvana is supreme, say those who are awake. No true monk injures others. No ascetic oppresses others. Patience as supreme sacrifice, not fasting, not self-flagellation, not dramatic renunciation. Just the daily practice of not reacting, not striking back, not adding fuel to every fire. It's harder than any physical austerity. Easier to go without food for days than to be patient with someone who's testing every boundary. Easier to sleep on the ground than to stay calm when everything in you wants to explode. Not to insult, not to injure, to practice restraint according to the rules, to be moderate in eating, to dwell in solitude, to devote oneself to meditation. This is the teaching of all awakened ones. Rain of gold coins wouldn't satisfy our sensual desires, the Buddha said. Little pleasure and much pain, that's what they bring. Knowing this, the wise one finds no delight, even in heavenly pleasures. The disciple of the fully awakened Buddha delights in the ending of craving. Even gods envy those who are awake, not because they're better, because they're free. Free from the cycle of always wanting more, always fearing loss, always defending the ego against imagined threats. The awakened ones teach this, and the teaching brings something most people have forgotten is possible. Let us live happily, without hate, among those who hate. Among hateful people, let us dwell without hate. Let us live happily, in good health, among those who are sick. Among sick people, let us dwell in good health. Let us live happily, without yearning among those who yearn. Among those who yearn, let us dwell without yearning. These verses sound impossible until you meet someone who actually lives this way. Then you realize, it's not pretending the hate isn't there. It's not being infected by it. There was someone who worked in a toxic environment, office politics, backstabbing, constant complaints, everyone miserable, and making sure everyone else was too. For months, they participated fully, complained with the complainers, gossiped with the gossipers, hated with the haters. One Monday, they decided to try something different, not to fix everyone else or change the culture, just to stop participating in the toxicity. When people complained, they listened without adding fuel. When people gossiped, they changed the subject. When people spread hate, they stayed quiet or found something genuinely appreciative to say. It was lonely at first. The bonding everyone else did through shared misery wasn't available anymore. Some people thought they were being fake or judgmental. But something shifted. They went home less drained. The job didn't get better, but they stopped carrying the poison home with them. And gradually, a few other people started sitting near them at lunch, drawn to the absence of drama, like plants turning toward light. Let us live happily, though we have nothing. Let us feed on joy like the radiant gods. Victory breeds hatred, the Buddha taught. The defeated live in pain. Those who've abandoned both victory and defeat live happily, at peace. As long as you're keeping score, who won, who lost, who's ahead, you're trapped. The winner feels temporary satisfaction and fear of losing. The loser feels resentment and plans revenge. Both are suffering. Real joy comes when you stop playing the game entirely. Not because you gave up or don't care, because you realized the game itself was the problem. There's no fire like lust, the Buddha said. No crime like hatred. No sorrow like the body. No bliss higher than peace. Hunger is the worst disease. Conditioned things are the greatest suffering. Knowing this as it truly is, nirvana is the highest bliss. Health is the highest gain. Contentment is the greatest wealth. Trust is the best kinship. Nirvana is the highest bliss. Contentment as greatest wealth. Not having everything you want, but wanting what you have. The billionaire who needs more is poor. The person with little who needs nothing is rich. Tasting the flavor of solitude and peace, one becomes free from fear and wrongdoing, drinking the nectar of truth. Good is the sight of noble ones, the Buddha taught. To live with them is always pleasant. By not seeing fools, one would always be happy. Those who travel with fools suffer a long journey. Living with fools is always painful, like living with an enemy. But living with the wise is pleasant, like meeting beloved relatives. If you find a wise companion, someone steady and insightful, walk with them. Overcome all dangers together, mindful and happy. The teaching keeps coming back to this. Who you spend time with shapes who you become. Spend time with people who complain. You'll complain more. Spend time with people who see clearly. You'll see more clearly. Not because they change you directly, because their way of being shows you what's possible. Nirvana is the highest joy, the Buddha said. Not the joy that depends on getting what you want. Not the joy that comes from winning or achieving or being praised. The joy that remains when all conditions change, when everything you built falls apart, when you lose everything external. The joy of being free from craving, free from fear, free from the endless cycle of wanting and not wanting. But joy can become a trap when you start chasing it, grasping at it, demanding it as payment for your spiritual practice. Those who indulge in pleasure and neglect meditation increase their cravings. They're like people strengthening the bonds that bind them. But those who delight in stilling thoughts, who meditate on what's repulsive about the body, who remain mindful, they will make an end of craving. They cut the bonds that tie them to suffering. The Buddha isn't condemning pleasure itself. He's pointing to something more subtle, the difference between enjoying something and needing it, between pleasure and craving. Pleasure happens. You eat good food, it tastes good. You hear music, it moves you. You're warm on a cold day, comfortable. Nothing wrong with any of that. Craving is different. Craving is when you can't enjoy the meal because you're already thinking about the next one. When the music ends and you feel empty. When comfort becomes something you need constantly, or you fall apart. There was someone who loved good coffee, really loved it, the ritual of making it, the smell, the first sip, in the morning. Harmless pleasure, right? Except they realized they couldn't function without it. Couldn't be pleasant to anyone until they'd had their coffee. Traveled with coffee equipment because they couldn't trust anyone else to make it right. Got anxious if their brand wasn't available. The pleasure had become a chain. They tried quitting completely, but that wasn't the answer either. That was just replacing one extreme with another. Instead, they learned to drink coffee without needing it, sometimes having it, sometimes not, enjoying it when present, but fine when absent. That's equanimity, not indifference, not numbness, just not being controlled by preferences. Free from craving and yearning, the Buddha taught, one feels bliss beyond any sensual pleasure. Free from both pleasure and pain, one finds real freedom. From pleasure comes grief. From pleasure comes fear. For one free from pleasure, there's no grief. So how could there be fear? From affection comes grief. From affection comes fear. For one free from affection, there's no grief. So how could there be fear? From sensuality comes grief. From sensuality comes fear. For one free from sensuality, there's no grief. So how could there be fear? From craving comes grief. From craving comes fear. For one free from craving, there's no grief. So how could there be fear? Each passion breeds its own terror. Love something desperately, and you live in fear of losing it. Desire something intensely, and you suffer when you can't have it. Attached to pleasure, and pain becomes unbearable. Free from both doesn't mean not caring about anything. It means caring without clinging, loving without possessing, enjoying without addiction. Pleasure binds subtly, wrapping around you so gently you don't notice until you try to move. Anger binds obviously, with chains you can see and feel. Abandon anger, the Buddha said. Give up pride. Get beyond all attachments. When you're not clinging to name and form, when you own nothing, suffering can't touch you. When anger rises like a speeding chariot, one who checks it, that person I call a true charioteer. Others just hold the reins. The image is exact. Anyone can hold reins when horses are calm. The test comes when they're racing, when anger has momentum and wants to run wild. Checking the chariot means feeling the full force of anger without acting on it. Feeling the heat, the righteousness, the absolute certainty that you're justified and not moving. Just sitting with it until it passes, because it always passes if you don't feed it. Conquer anger with love, the Buddha taught. Conquer evil with good. Conquer the stingy with generosity. Conquer the liar with truth. Speak the truth. Don't give in to anger. Give even from your poverty. Through these three things, you reach the presence of the gods. There was someone in a meeting where they were being blamed for something that wasn't their fault. The accusations were unfair. The tone was hostile, and every instinct said, fight back. Defend yourself. Make them see they're wrong. They opened their mouth to do exactly that, then stopped. Not from weakness or fear, from seeing the bigger picture. This person blaming them was clearly hurting, clearly threatened, clearly struggling with something that had nothing to do with the actual issue. They could win this argument and make an enemy, or they could let it go and maybe, eventually, find an ally. You're right that this didn't go well, they said quietly. Let's figure out how to fix it together. The room shifted. Not dramatically. No one apologized or admitted they were wrong. But the tension dropped, the defensiveness eased, and they actually solved the problem instead of just arguing about whose fault it was. That's conquering anger with non-anger. Not pretending you're not angry. Choosing not to act from anger. Choosing what actually works over what feels momentarily satisfying. The sages who harm no one, who always control their bodies, they go to the unchanging place, where, having gone, they don't grieve. Those always wakeful, studying day and night, intent on nirvana, their taints fade away. This is an old saying, not from today alone. They blame one who sits silent. They blame one who speaks much. They blame one who speaks moderately. There's no one in the world who isn't blamed. There never was, there never will be, nor is there now anyone who is only blamed or only praised. Everyone gets criticized. The quiet one for being distant, the talkative one for being overbearing, the moderate one for being bland. You cannot live in a way that pleases everyone. So stop trying. Do what's right, not what gets approval. The wise know the difference. Anger controlled, blame accepted as inevitable, peace chosen over being right. But time is still short, and there's work to do. You stand at death's door, the Buddha said. You're about to travel far, and you have no provisions for the journey. Make an island for yourself. Strive quickly. Be wise. With impurities blown away, free from passion's stain, you'll reach the noble land of the awakened ones. Your life is almost over. You've come to death's presence. There's no resting place on the way, and you have no provisions. Make an island for yourself. Strive quickly. Be wise. With impurities blown away, free from passion's stain, you won't return to birth and aging. The yellow leaves are falling. That's you. Death's messengers are waiting. That's real. The journey is beginning whether you're ready or not. Not meant to terrify you into panic, meant to wake you from the comfortable delusion that you have unlimited time to figure things out. Someone once put off every important thing, the difficult conversations, the meaningful work, the vulnerable connections, thinking they'd get to it eventually. Then they got a diagnosis that changed eventually to maybe 6 months. Suddenly, the unimportant fell away. The grudges they'd been nursing, irrelevant. The career achievements they'd been chasing, meaningless. What mattered became crystalline clear, being present with people they loved, saying what needed saying, making peace with their own story. They built the island in 6 months that they could have been building all along, and when the end came, they were ready. Not because they'd finished everything, because they'd done what actually mattered. Little by little, moment by moment, the Buddha taught, the wise one removes impurities from themselves, like a silversmith removing dross from silver. The silversmith doesn't blast the silver with maximum heat all at once. That would destroy it. They apply steady, measured heat, watching carefully, removing each impurity as it rises to the surface. Your work is the same, not dramatic purification through extreme measures, patient, consistent effort over time. Each moment of awareness, each choice toward kindness, each time you catch a harmful pattern and redirect it. One impurity at a time, one day at a time. The work of a lifetime. As rust arising from iron eats away the iron itself, the Buddha said, so one's own deeds lead the transgressor to a bad destination. The rust comes from the iron. It's not applied from outside. It's the iron corrupting itself through its own nature, interacting with air and water. That's how our harmful patterns work. No one makes you resentful. You generate resentment. No one makes you greedy. You cultivate greed. The corruption comes from within, and it destroys from within. Non-recitation is the rust of mantras, the Buddha taught. Non-maintenance is the rust of houses. Laziness is the rust of beauty. Negligence is the rust of the watchful. Misconduct is a woman's flaw. Stinginess is a giver's flaw. Bad qualities are flaws in this world and the next. But worse than all these flaws is ignorance, the worst flaw of all. Life is easy for the shameless, the Buddha said, who is as bold as a crow, a backbiter, arrogant, reckless, corrupt. But life is hard for one who has a sense of shame, always seeks purity, is detached and not reckless, lives purely and with insight. True, it's easier to lie, cheat, take shortcuts, ignore consequences. Easier in the short term anyway. In the long term, the shameless person builds a life like a house on quicksand, looks fine until tested, then everything collapses. Whoever destroys life, speaks falsely, takes what isn't given, goes to another's wife, indulges in intoxicating drink, such a one digs up their own roots right here in this world. Know this, the uncontrolled are in a bad state. Don't let greed and wrongdoing oppress you to long suffering. People give according to their faith and satisfaction, the Buddha said. If you're upset about others' food and drink, you won't reach concentration by day or night. But if you've cut off, destroyed, and eliminated such upset, you reach concentration by day or night. Stop comparing. Stop scorekeeping. Stop being disturbed by what others have or don't have. That disturbance is another chain binding you. Impurities removed through patient effort, one at a time, like silver, becoming pure. But what about the path itself? How do you walk it? Not by force of speech does one become righteous, the Buddha taught. One who is patient, free from hate and fear, that one is called righteous. There was a judge known for never rushing to judgment. When cases came before her, she'd listen to all sides completely before saying anything. Sometimes she'd pause for a full minute just thinking, the entire courtroom silent, waiting. Other judges were faster, more decisive, more impressive in their quick certainty. But her verdicts held. People trusted her rulings, even when they disagreed, because they knew she'd actually considered everything carefully. She wasn't smarter than other judges. She just understood that truth reveals itself slowly, that quick judgment is usually wrong judgment, that patience isn't weakness. It's the only way to see clearly. A speaker of much Dhamma who doesn't practice it is like a cowherd counting others' cattle, the Buddha said. They don't share in the contemplative life. A speaker of little Dhamma who practices the teaching, who abandons passion, aversion, and delusion, who has right knowledge and a mind well freed, such a one shares in the contemplative life. Not how much you know, how much you live, not how eloquently you speak about compassion, how compassionately you treat the person in front of you right now. One isn't called an elder just because one's head is grey, the Buddha taught. If one is merely advanced in years, one is called aged in vain. One in whom there is truth, Dhamma, harmlessness, restraint, and self-control, who has expelled stains and is wise, that one is called an elder. The venerable elder isn't determined by age, but by virtue. You can be 80 and still a fool. You can be 30 and genuinely wise. Grey hair proves nothing except time passing. Not by eloquence or beautiful appearance does one become good. If one is envious, stingy, or deceitful, the Buddha said. But one in whom these are cut off, uprooted, eliminated, one who is wise, with hatred expelled, that one is called good. Not by shaven head does one become a monk if one is undisciplined and speaks untruth. How can one full of greed and desire be a monk? But one who calms all evil, great and small, by calming evil, is one called a monk. The costume doesn't make the monk. The vows don't make the monk. Living the teaching makes the monk, whether they're wearing robes or jeans. Righteousness established through calm examination, patience, and actual practice rather than performance. Now the path opens before you, clear and waiting. Best of paths is the eightfold path the Buddha taught. Best of truths are the Four Noble Truths. Best of qualities is freedom from passion. Best of two-footed beings is one who sees. This is the path. There's no other for purity of vision. Follow this path and you'll bewilder death itself. Following this path, you'll make an end of suffering. I've proclaimed this path, having known the removal of suffering's arrows. You yourself must strive. The awakened ones only point the way. Those who meditate and enter the path are freed from the bonds of death. The eightfold path isn't a ladder you climb or a test you pass. Think of it as 8 companions walking beside you, each one helping in a different way. Right view is seeing clearly, not seeing what you wish was true or fear might be true, seeing what actually is. It's sitting at breakfast and noticing, I'm angry, and the anger is real, but I'm not the anger. It's watching your thoughts arise and pass like clouds, instead of believing every story they tell. Right intention is choosing your direction, not being blown by every wind of circumstance, but knowing, this is where I'm headed. Intention toward renunciation, letting go of harmful attachments. Intention toward goodwill, wishing others well, even when it's hard. Intention toward harmlessness, choosing not to hurt when you have the power to hurt. Right speech is understanding that words are actions with consequences. The cruel joke that lands like a punch, the truth spoken to heal instead of to wound, the silence chosen instead of the cutting remark. Every word either adds suffering to the world or reduces it. There's no neutral speech. Right action is hands that help instead of harm. Not killing, not stealing, not abusing others sexually, but also the positive, reaching out, offering what you have, touching gently when you could grab roughly. Right livelihood is work that doesn't wound the world, not making your living through harm, no weapons dealing, no slave trading, no poison selling, no fraud. But more than that, earning your way in a manner that lets you sleep at night, that doesn't require you to become someone you're ashamed of. Right effort is the sustainable striving, not the heroic sprint that ends in collapse, but the steady pace you can maintain, preventing new, harmful states from arising, abandoning harmful states that have arisen, cultivating wholesome states not yet arisen, maintaining wholesome states already present. Day after day, choice after choice. Right mindfulness is remembering to remember. Your mind will wander. That's what minds do. Mindfulness is noticing when it's wandered and bringing it back, then noticing again when it wanders again, bringing it back again, 10,000 times if necessary. Right concentration is gathering what's scattered. Your attention is usually fragmented, part here, part there, part in yesterday, part in tomorrow. Concentration brings it all to one point, like sunlight through a magnifying glass, and something ignites. There was someone who lived this way without knowing the Buddhist names for it. They'd never heard of the Eightfold Path, never read the sutras, never sat on a meditation cushion. But they saw their life clearly, acknowledged their mistakes without defending them, noticed their patterns without judgment. They chose kindness as their direction even when it cost them. They spoke carefully, knowing words could build or destroy. Their work helped people, and they could look anyone in the eye. They showed up consistently, not perfectly, but reliably. They paid attention to their own mind, caught themselves in harmful spirals, redirected gently. When they finally encountered the Buddha's teaching years later, they thought, "Oh, there are names for what I've been trying to do. I've been walking this path all along without knowing it had a name." The path isn't Buddhist, it's human. The Buddha just mapped what works, what leads to less suffering, what actually helps. All conditioned things are impermanent, he taught. When one sees this with wisdom, one grows weary of suffering. This is the path to purity. All conditioned things are suffering. When one sees this with wisdom, one grows weary of suffering. This is the path to purity. All things are not self. When one sees this with wisdom, one grows weary of suffering. This is the path to purity. The three seals, the three marks of existence. Everything changes. Impermanence. Clinging to what changes creates suffering. Dukkha. Nothing has a permanent, independent self. Anatta. Not philosophy to debate. Truths to see directly in your own experience. Watch anything closely enough, and you'll see it changing. Notice how suffering arises when you try to hold on to what's shifting. Look for the permanent you, and find only a flowing process, not a fixed thing. Those who don't rouse themselves when it's time to rise, who are lazy and weak in resolve, who are overcome by laziness and sloth. Such people don't find the path of wisdom. You must make the effort. Teachers can only point the way, walk beside you, encourage you. But the actual steps, those are yours alone. The path is clear, mapped by countless travelers before you, maintained by those who walk it now. But we must stay alert, because even on a clear path, it's easy to drift into sleep. One who gives in to heedlessness in slight things, who delights in slight things, who doesn't remember the goal, such a one grows in craving, like a creeper in the forest. But one who is mindful, who contemplates constantly, who cultivates what should be cultivated, such a one's craving fades away. The difference between small pleasure and great joy isn't obvious at first. Small pleasure is immediate, easy, available. Great joy takes time, effort, sacrifice of the immediate for the lasting. There was someone who loved their evenings of television, wine, and snacks. Nothing wrong with any of it individually. But 4 hours every night, for years, they realized they'd traded their evenings for numbness. They wanted to write, had wanted to for decades, but writing required being present, being alert, being vulnerable. The wine made that impossible. The television filled the space where writing could happen. The snacks were just another distraction. So they stopped. Not forever, not as punishment, just stopped automatically, reaching for those things every single night. The first weeks were uncomfortable. The evenings felt long and empty. They didn't know what to do with themselves without their usual routine. But then they started writing. Badly at first, painfully. But something was coming alive that had been dormant for years. 6 months later, they'd finished a manuscript they'd been planning to write someday for 20 years. The joy of that, seeing something complete, something real, something they'd actually done instead of just talked about, made the pleasure of those nightly escapes seem thin and hollow in comparison. They'd given up small pleasures and found something larger, not better than pleasure, different, deeper, more real. Those who seek their own happiness by harming others are not freed from hate, being entangled in the bonds of enmity. You can't build your peace on someone else's pain. It doesn't work. The chains you bind others with bind you too. Through doing what should not be done, and not doing what should be done, in those heedless and careless, the taints increase. But in those always mindful, who cultivate meditation on the body, who don't do what should not be done, but persevere in what should be done, in those mindful and aware, the taints come to an end. We know what we should do. Almost always, we know. The problem isn't information. It's doing what we know. Should call that person back. Don't. Should say the difficult thing. Stay silent. Should stop eating. Keep eating. should start exercising, stay sedentary. The gap between knowing and doing is where most of us live our entire lives. Having slain mother and father, 2 warrior kings, a kingdom with its subjects, and a hero as 5th, the Brahmin goes untroubled. Having slain mother and father, 2 Brahmin kings, and a tiger as 5th, the Brahmin goes untroubled. Shocking verses, deliberately provocative. The Buddha using metaphor so stark it stops you cold. Mother is craving, the force that births all suffering. Father is conceit, the ego that must be maintained. The 2 kings are eternalism and nihilism, the extreme views that trap us. The kingdom is sense pleasures and attachments. The hero or tiger is doubt that paralyzes. Kill these, metaphorically, in your own mind and heart, and you're purified even from the worst karma. Not literally harming anyone, but destroying the roots of suffering within yourself. The disciples of Gautama Buddha, always awake, whether by day or by night, constantly recollect the Buddha. The disciples of Gautama Buddha, always awake, whether by day or by night, constantly recollect the Dhamma. The disciples of Gautama Buddha, always awake, whether by day or by night, constantly recollect the Sangha. Remembering the Buddha, not worshipping, but remembering what awakening actually looks like, that it's possible, that someone did it. Remembering the Dhamma, the teaching, the truth, the way things actually are beneath the stories we tell. Remembering the Sangha, the community of practitioners, those who walk the path with you, who understand what you're trying to do because they're trying to do it too. The disciples of Gautama Buddha, always awake, whether by day or by night, constantly recollect the body. The disciples of Gautama Buddha, always awake, whether by day or by night, delight in harmlessness. The disciples of Gautama Buddha, always awake, whether by day or by night, delight in meditation. Recollecting the body, this flesh and bones, temporary and changing, subject to aging and death. Not morbid contemplation, but realistic seeing. Delighting in harmlessness, finding actual joy in not causing pain, in being gentle, in letting things live. Delighting in meditation, the deep happiness that comes from a mind at peace with itself, gathered and still. Difficult is the going forth, difficult to delight in, the Buddha taught. Difficult and painful is life in a household. Painful is association with those unlike oneself. The traveler in samsara is beset by pain, so don't be a traveler, don't be beset. Painful to leave the world and become a monastic, giving up everything familiar. Painful to stay in the world, caught in all the entanglements of family, work, society. Both paths have their suffering. The point isn't to escape pain. It's to stop adding unnecessary pain to the inevitable pain of existence. To stop being a restless traveler, constantly seeking the next thing, and instead, rest where you are. Awareness sharpens through practice, through remembering, through paying attention, day and night. But what of the shadows? The things we don't want to see, the parts of ourselves we'd rather ignore. Those who say they did what they didn't do, and those who say they didn't do what they did, both go to a woeful state, both being people of base action. The Buddha isn't talking about theology or the afterlife here. He's talking about psychology, about what happens inside a person who lives with lies. The hell realm isn't somewhere you go after death. It's the state you create in your own mind when you can't face the truth. When your whole life becomes a performance, a cover-up, an endless defense against being found out. There was someone who told a small lie at work. Just a little one. Said they'd completed something they hadn't quite finished yet. No big deal. They'd finish it soon anyway. But their boss mentioned the completed project to someone else. Now that person was expecting deliverables based on work that didn't exist. So another lie to cover the timing, another to explain the delay. Each lie requiring more lies to support it, like a house of cards where every new card makes the whole structure more fragile. 6 months later, they were maintaining an elaborate fiction involving fake emails, backdated documents, and carefully managed conversations. They couldn't sleep well, couldn't relax. Every meeting was a minefield. They'd created their own hell, not after death, but right here, in their daily life. When it finally collapsed, the relief was almost worth the consequences. Not having to remember which lie they'd told to whom, not having to perform constantly, not having to live in that self-created prison anymore. Many wearing the yellow robe have bad character and are uncontrolled, the Buddha said. Through their bad character, they're reborn in hell. Better to swallow a red-hot iron ball, blazing like fire, than to be an immoral person, without self-control, eating the alms food of the country. Harsh words, deliberately shocking. The point, wearing the costume doesn't make you the thing. Calling yourself spiritual while acting harmfully is worse than not pretending at all. The yellow robe, the meditation cushion, the spiritual books on your shelf, none of it means anything if your actual life contradicts it. Better to be honestly struggling than falsely enlightened. 4 things befall a heedless person who commits adultery with another's spouse, the Buddha taught. Acquisition of demerit, troubled sleep, blame from others, and rebirth in hell. There's acquisition of demerit and a bad destination. Brief is the pleasure of the frightened with the frightened. The king imposes a harsh punishment. Therefore, one should not commit adultery with another's spouse. Not moralizing for its own sake, practical ethics. These are the actual consequences that follow the action like shadows follow a body. The demerit is the weight you carry in your own conscience. The troubled sleep is the anxiety of being found out. The blame is the loss of trust and reputation. The hell is the destruction of multiple lives, your own, your partner's, the other person. their partner. And the pleasure that seemed worth it? Brief and shot through with fear. Never free, never clean. As kusa grass wrongly grasped cuts the hand, the Buddha said, so the monastic life, wrongly grasped, drags one to hell. Any slack action, any corrupt observance, any suspicious celibacy, none of these bear great fruit. If something's to be done, do it firmly. A lax monastic stirs up dust all the more, the dust of passion. The kusa grass image is precise. Grasp it correctly, and it's useful, harmless. Grasp it wrong, and it cuts you. Same with spiritual practice. Done skillfully, it liberates. Done unskillfully, with wrong intention or understanding, it can harm. Someone who meditates to escape their problems rather than face them isn't practicing. They're just finding a new form of avoidance. Someone who uses spiritual concepts to bypass genuine emotion or responsibility isn't growing. They're just building a prettier prison. Better not to do a bad deed, for it torments you afterward, the Buddha taught. Better to do a good deed, for you don't regret it afterward. Like a frontier city guarded inside and out, so you should guard yourself. Don't let the moment pass you by. Those who let the moment pass grieve when consigned to hell. The frontier city, the border town that must be vigilant because enemies could come from any direction. That's you. Guard yourself means pay attention. Stay awake. Don't drift into carelessness just because nothing bad has happened lately. People are ashamed of what they shouldn't be ashamed of and not ashamed of what they should be, the Buddha said. Embracing wrong views, they go to a woeful state. People see danger where there is no danger, and no danger where there is danger. Embracing wrong views, they go to a woeful state. People see wrong in what is right, and right in what is wrong. Embracing wrong views, they go to a woeful state. But those who see wrong as wrong and right as right, embracing right views, they go to a good destination. Ashamed of being vulnerable, but not ashamed of being cruel. Afraid of looking weak, but not afraid of causing harm. Seeing kindness as foolishness, and ruthlessness as strength. All of it upside down, all of it leading to suffering. From darkness we turn to endurance, the strength to bear what must be borne. I will endure abuse like an elephant in battle endures arrows shot from a bow, the Buddha said. Most people are undisciplined. They lead a tamed elephant into battle. The king mounts a tamed elephant. Best among human beings is the tamed one who endures abuse. Excellent are tamed mules, thoroughbred horses, and great elephants. But better still is one who has tamed oneself. The elephant in battle stands firm, while arrows rain down, not because it doesn't feel them, because it's been trained to endure without fleeing or attacking wildly. That's the strength the Buddha is pointing to, not invulnerability, disciplined response to inevitable pain. You will be criticized, attacked, misunderstood, hurt. The question isn't whether it happens, but how you meet it when it does. For not by these vehicles could you go to the untrodden land, the Buddha taught, but by self, well-tamed, you go, being well-tamed yourself. The elephant called Dhammapada, hard to control, when in rut, bound, eats not a morsel. The great elephant misses the elephant forest. Even the strongest, most magnificent elephant, when captured, when bound, remembers freedom and refuses to participate in captivity. That longing for the forest, for the natural state, for what you really are beneath all the conditioning, the Buddha is saying, honor that longing. When a person is sluggish and gluttonous, a sleeper who wallows like a great hog fed on grains, such a dullard enters the womb again and again. Before, this mind wandered where it wished, as it liked, as it pleased, the Buddha said. Today I will hold it in check, as one wielding a goad controls an elephant in rut. Notice, even the Buddha's mind wandered. Even he had to train it, hold it in check, work with it deliberately. He's not describing some perfect state he was born into. He's describing the ongoing practice of training attention. Your mind wanders too. That's not failure. That's the human condition. The practice is bringing it back, again and again, with the patience of someone training a powerful animal. Delight in heedfulness, the Buddha taught. Guard your mind well. Lift yourself out of the bad way, as an elephant, sunk in mud, pulls itself out. The elephant doesn't sink in mud and then give up, deciding it's too hard to escape. It uses its strength methodically, one movement at a time, until it's free. You do the same with habits that trap you, with patterns that feel overwhelming, one choice at a time, one day at a time, persistent effort, until you're standing on solid ground again. If you find a mature companion, a wise associate who leads a good life, you should, overcoming all dangers, wander with that person, pleased and mindful. But if you don't find a mature companion, a wise associate who leads a good life, you should wander alone, like a king who has abandoned his conquered kingdom, or like a great elephant, alone in the elephant forest. Better it is to wander alone. There's no companionship with a fool. Wander alone and do no evil, free from care like a great elephant alone in the elephant forest. The great elephant alone, powerful, dignified, self-sufficient, not lonely because it needs no one, complete in itself. That's the alternative when you can't find wise companions, solitude with integrity, rather than company that corrupts. Better to walk alone than with fools who will drag you down, who will normalize harmful patterns, who will make your worst impulses seem reasonable. Loneliness is temporary discomfort. Bad company is lasting damage. A pleasant thing is companionship when a need has arisen, the Buddha taught. Pleasant is contentment with whatever there is. Pleasant at life's end is merit. Pleasant is the abandoning of all suffering. Pleasant in the world is reverence for one's mother. Pleasant too is reverence for one's father. Pleasant in the world is reverence for monastics. Pleasant too is reverence for the noble ones. Pleasant is virtue lasting to old age. Pleasant is faith well established. Pleasant is attainment of wisdom. Pleasant is avoidance of evil deeds. These simple goods, friendship when needed, contentment with what is, parents honored, virtue maintained, wisdom gained, harm avoided. Not dramatic, not heroic, just the quiet pleasures of a life lived with care and attention. Like the elephant, endure what must be endured. The arrows of criticism, the weight of responsibility, the difficulty of transformation. Like the monk, renounce what must be renounced, the comfortable lies, the easy escape, the false companionship that corrupts. When a person doesn't practice meditation but lives devoted to pleasure, the Buddha taught, craving grows like a creeping vine. Such a one runs from birth to birth like a monkey in the forest searching for fruit. Whoever in the world is overcome by this wretched clinging craving, their sorrows grow like birana grass after rain. But whoever in the world overcomes this wretched clinging craving, so hard to overcome, sorrows fall away like water drops from a lotus leaf. Craving is like a vine that starts small and innocent, just a little tendril wrapping around the trunk of your life. You barely notice it at first. Then it spreads, sending out runners in every direction, wrapping tighter, growing thicker, until one day you realize the vine has taken over completely, and the tree, your actual life, is being strangled. There was someone who realized they had a problem with shopping, not the buying itself, the craving that drove it. Every time they felt stressed, lonely, or bored, they'd buy something online. The anticipation of the package arriving would lift their mood temporarily. They try to stop buying certain things, clothes, then electronics, then books, but the craving just moved to something else. It wasn't about the objects, it was about the momentary relief from discomfort. So they tried something different. Instead of cutting branches, they went for the root. They started sitting with the discomfort that triggered the shopping urge, feeling the boredom without reaching for distraction, experiencing the loneliness without trying to fill it with things. Brutal at first, the craving would scream for satisfaction. But gradually, like a fire without fuel, it weakened. Not because they'd developed iron willpower, because they'd stopped feeding the root. The monkey jumps from tree to tree, searching, always searching, never finding fruit that satisfies. That's what craving does. Keeps you moving, seeking, convinced the next thing will finally be enough. This is the blessing I tell you, the Buddha said. All of you gathered here, dig up the root of craving like one digging up birana grass for its fragrant root. Don't let death crush you again and again, like a flood crushing a reed. The Bhairana grass has bitter leaves, but a sweet-smelling root. You have to dig through the unpleasant surface to get to what's valuable underneath. Same with craving. You have to go through the discomfort of not satisfying it to reach the freedom beneath. Just as a tree, though cut down, sprouts again if its root is strong and undamaged, so suffering returns again and again if craving's tendency is not completely uprooted. You can cut down the manifestations of craving 1,000 times. Stop drinking but start eating compulsively. Stop eating compulsively but start overworking. Stop overworking but start endlessly scrolling. The root remains intact, sending up new shoots wherever you're not looking. The 36 streams of craving flowing toward pleasure overwhelm a person of wrong views, the Buddha taught. The currents, thoughts based on passion, carry such a one away. 36 rivers of desire, wanting things to be different than they are, wanting more of what feels good, wanting less of what feels bad, wanting to be someone else, somewhere else, some other time. All flowing, all pulling, all trying to sweep you away from where you actually are. The streams flow everywhere. The creeper sprouts and spreads. Seeing the creeper that has arisen, cut the root with wisdom. Beings flow toward pleasures, the Buddha said, seeking delights. Such people, subject to birth and aging, just see them, caught in the current of craving. People caught in craving run about like a hunted hare, bound by fetters and bonds. They return to suffering again and again for a long time. The hare fleeing the hunter, pure panic, no strategy, just running. That's beings fleeing their own craving, which is impossible because you can't outrun what's inside you. The faster you run, the more exhausted you become, and the craving is still there, waiting. People caught in craving run about like a hunted hare. Therefore, one wanting freedom from passion should remove craving from oneself. Someone free from the forest of craving returns to the forest again. Just look at that person. Though free, they run back to bondage. The saddest case, someone who has tasted freedom, who knows what it's like to be free from craving, who then voluntarily walks back into prison. Was free, returned to prison. The Buddha's words are stark because the situation is tragic. Why do people do it? Because freedom can be uncomfortable. It requires being present with everything, not just the pleasant, but the difficult, the boring, the painful. Craving offers the familiar comfort of having something to chase, someone to be, somewhere to get to. Craving loosens its grip when we become what we're looking for, instead of endlessly seeking it outside ourselves. Good is restraint in the eye, the Buddha taught. Good is restraint in the ear. Good is restraint in the nose. Good is restraint in the tongue. Good is restraint in the body. Good is restraint in speech. Good is restraint in mind. Good is restraint everywhere. A monk restrained everywhere is freed from all suffering. Restraint doesn't mean repression. It means skillful relationship with the senses, not being controlled by every stimulus, every impulse, every passing desire. The monastic life is a metaphor available to everyone, not just people in robes. It's the choice to live with intention instead of habit, with awareness instead of autopilot, with commitment to what actually matters instead of drift. One who restrains hand and foot, restrains speech as well, delights in inner stillness, is content, solitary, at peace. That one I call a monk. There was someone with a regular job, a family, a mortgage, completely ordinary life, but they lived like a monk in the essential ways. They were careful with their words, spoke only when it added value. They didn't chase every pleasure that presented itself. They spent time in silence every day, just sitting, just being present. They were content with what they had instead of constantly wanting more. Their friends thought they were missing out on life, but they'd found something their friends were still searching for, a sense of enough, of being home in themselves, of not needing circumstances to be different to be okay. A monk who controls their tongue, speaks wisely, is gentle, explains the meaning and the letter of the teaching. Sweet is their speech. One who dwells in the Dhamma, delights in the Dhamma, meditates on the Dhamma, remembers the Dhamma well. Such a monk doesn't fall away from the true Dhamma. One shouldn't despise what one receives, nor envy others. A monk who envies others doesn't attain concentration. Even if receiving little, if a monk doesn't despise their gains, the gods praise such a one who lives purely and doesn't slacken effort. The hand without a wound can carry poison. The Buddha taught, poison doesn't affect one without a wound. There's no evil for one who doesn't do evil. If you're not creating harm, harm has nowhere to land in you. Like poison on healthy skin, it can't penetrate, can't infect, can't destroy. But one small wound, and the poison enters, spreads, kills. Whoever wrongs an innocent person, one pure and blameless, the evil falls back on that fool, like fine dust thrown against the wind. Hard to be born as a human being, the Buddha taught. Hard to live the mortal life. Hard to hear the true Dhamma. Hard is the arising of Buddhas. You've already won the cosmic lottery several times over, just to be here, able to hear this, capable of understanding it. Don't waste it on autopilot. Empty the boat, the Buddha said. Emptied, it will sail swiftly for you. Having cut off passion and hate, you'll reach nirvana. The boat is your life, and it's full of cargo you don't need. Old grievances, future worries, opinions about everything, the story about who you are and who you should be. Empty it and see how much faster and lighter you move. Cut off 5, abandon 5, and develop 5 more, the Buddha taught. A monk who has transcended 5 fetters is called one who has crossed the flood. 5 to cut off: greed, ill will, sloth, restlessness, doubt. 5 to abandon, greed for form, greed for formless states, conceit, restlessness, ignorance. 5 to develop, faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, wisdom. Meditate, monk, the Buddha urged. Don't be heedless. Don't let your mind whirl in sensual pleasures, lest heedless you swallow a red-hot iron ball and cry out when burning, "This is suffering." Without wisdom, there's no concentration. Without concentration, there's no wisdom. One in whom there's both concentration and wisdom is near nirvana, indeed. A monk who enters an empty dwelling, whose mind is at peace, who sees the Dhamma clearly, such a one experiences a delight beyond that of humans. Whenever one reflects on the arising and passing of the aggregates, one gains rapture and joy. For those who understand, this is the deathless. Seeing things arise and pass, breath coming and going, thoughts appearing and dissolving, emotions swelling and subsiding, everything in constant flux. Really seeing this, not just knowing it intellectually, but witnessing it directly in your own experience, that's the beginning of freedom from death. For a wise monk in this very teaching, this is the beginning, guarding the senses, contentment, restraint in the code of conduct, association with noble friends, whose livelihood is pure, who are not lazy. One should be hospitable and well-mannered. Then, full of joy, one will make an end of suffering. Just as the jasmine sheds its withered flowers, so monks shed passion and hate. Let the flowers fall. Let the dead petals drop. Not by force, not by straining, just by being present as they naturally release their hold and drift away. The monk achieves freedom not by becoming someone else, but by releasing what was never truly theirs to begin with. What is this freedom called? Cut off the stream completely, the Buddha taught. Drive away sensual desires, Brahmana. Knowing the ending of conditioned things, you become a knower of the unmade, nirvana. When a Brahmana has gone beyond two things, tranquility and insight, then all fetters of such a knowing one come to an end. I call a Brahmana one for whom there is neither this shore nor the far shore nor both. One who is free from distress and unbound. The word Brahmana here has nothing to do with birth or caste. The Buddha is describing inner nobility, the qualities of someone who has completed the journey, who has arrived at what they were always seeking. No shore means not clinging to anything, not this world or the next, not being or non-being, not existence or extinction. Just free, completely free, standing nowhere because there's nowhere they need to stand. I call a Brahmana one who is meditative, free from blemish, settled, whose work is done, who is free from taints and has attained the highest goal. There was someone you might have met and not noticed anything special about them. They worked an ordinary job, lived in a regular house, wore normal clothes. But when you talked to them, something was different. They weren't trying to impress you or convince you of anything. They didn't need to be right or to win. When you spoke, they actually listened instead of just waiting for their turn to talk. When they spoke, their words came from somewhere real, not from script or performance. They'd clearly been through things, you could see it in their eyes, but they weren't carrying those things like weights anymore. More like they'd learned from them and set them down. The sun shines by day, the Buddha said. The moon glows by night. The warrior shines in armor. The Brahmana shines in meditation. But all day and all night, the Buddha shines in radiance. I call a Brahmana one who has banished evil, who is called a contemplative for being calm, who has left home by going forth, who has expelled all blemish. Because one has banished evil, one is called a Brahmana, the Buddha taught. Because one lives in peace, one is called a contemplative. By abandoning one's impurities, one is called one gone forth. The titles don't matter. What matters is the actual state of being they point to. Someone who has genuinely let go of causing harm, who lives in actual peace, who has released what needed releasing. One should not strike a Brahmana, the Buddha said, nor should a Brahmana let loose anger at the striker. Shame on one who strikes a Brahmana, and more shame on one who lets loose anger. It's no small thing for a Brahmana that one restrains the mind from things endearing. When the intent to harm has been abandoned, right there, suffering is stilled. The person I'm describing, when someone was rude to them, they didn't become rude back. Not because they were suppressing anger, just because the anger didn't arise the way it once might have. The insult landed, but found nothing to stick to, like rain on leaves that just runs off. I call a Brahmana one who does no wrong by body, speech, or mind, who is restrained in these three ways. I call a Brahmana one from whom one should learn the Dhamma taught by the rightly self-awakened one, paying homage respectfully as a Brahmin to the sacrificial fire. Not by matted hair, by clan, or by birth does one become a Brahmana, the Buddha taught. One in whom there is truth and Dhamma is pure, that one is a Brahmana. What use is your matted hair, you fool? What use your skin of deer? Inwardly you're full of greed, while outwardly you make yourself pure. The costume means nothing. You can wear robes or matted hair or designer clothes. None of it matters if your actual life contradicts what you're presenting. But someone wearing ordinary clothes, who lives with genuine integrity, who has done the inner work, that one is holy, whatever they're wearing. I call a Brahmana one wearing rag robes, lean, with veins showing, meditating alone in the forest. I don't call one a Brahmana for being born of a Brahmana mother or from Brahmana womb. If one has possessions, one is just called one who says, sir. I call a Brahmana one who is without possessions and without clinging. I call a Brahmana one who has cut all fetters and doesn't tremble, who has gone beyond bonds and is unbound. The person had let go of so much, not in a dramatic renunciation, just gradually, over years, releasing what didn't serve. The need to be admired, the need to accumulate, the need to be right, the need to have their version of the past validated. Each release made them lighter, freer, more present. I call a Brahmana one who has cut the strap and thong, the rope with its attachments, who has lifted the bar of the door and is awakened. I call a Brahmana one who, though innocent, endures abuse, beating, and binding, whose strength is patience, whose army is strength. I call a Brahmana one who is free from anger, observant of duties, virtuous, without craving, tamed, and in the final body. The final body, meaning this is the last time they'll be driven by unconscious craving into another life of suffering. They've finished the work. This life is completion, not preparation for another round. I call a Brahmana one who doesn't cling to sensual pleasures, like water on a lotus leaf or a mustard seed on the point of an awl. Water doesn't stick to the lotus leaf. It beads up and rolls off. A mustard seed can't balance on a needle point. It falls right off. That's the relationship to pleasure. You can experience it without being trapped by it, enjoy it without needing it, touch it without clinging. I call a Brahmana one who knows right here the end of suffering, who has put down the burden and is unbound. I call a Brahmana one of deep discernment, wise, knowing the right and wrong path, who has attained the highest goal. The person knew things, but not from books alone. They knew from having walked through darkness and found the way out. When you asked them questions, they didn't quote texts. They spoke from direct experience, from having been lost and then found. I call a Brahmana one who associates with neither householders nor the homeless, who wanders without an abode, with few wants. I call a Brahmana one who has laid down the rod toward beings, firm and frail, who neither kills nor causes killing. I call a Brahmana one unopposed among the opposed, at peace among the armed, unclinging among those who cling. Unopposed among the opposed, not fighting those who fight, not hating those who hate, not playing the game everyone else is playing. Standing apart from the whole system of opposition and counter-opposition, finding peace in a world at war with itself. I call a Brahmana from whom passion, aversion, conceit, and contempt have fallen away like a mustard seed from the tip of an awl. I call a Brahmana one who would say what is instructive, true, and pleasing, who would offend no one with speech. I call a Brahmana one who takes nothing in the world that is not given, whether long or short, large or small, attractive or unattractive. I call a Brahmana one with no longings for this world or the next, who is longing free and unbound. No longings doesn't mean no preferences or no joy. It means not being driven by the desperate need for things to be other than they are. You can prefer sunshine to rain without suffering when it rains. You can hope for good outcomes without being destroyed when outcomes disappoint. I call a Brahmana one who has no attachments, who through knowledge has no uncertainties, who has reached the deathless. I call a Brahmana one who has gone beyond attachment here to both merit and evil, who is sorrowless, stainless, and pure. Gone beyond good and evil. This sounds shocking until you understand it. Not beyond ethics or morality, but beyond identifying as the good person versus the bad person. Beyond keeping score, beyond needing to prove goodness, beyond the whole system of self-judgment and self-congratulation. Just doing what's right because it's right, not because of what it makes you, or how it looks, or what reward it brings. I call a Brahmana one who is spotless, like the moon, pure, serene, and clear, in whom delight in being has been destroyed. Like the moon, pure, serene, clear, untroubled. Not because nothing difficult ever happens, but because nothing sticks, nothing stains, nothing permanently disturbs that fundamental clarity. The person had that quality. You could bring them your chaos, your drama, your emergency, and they'd help without absorbing it, without becoming it. Like the moon reflecting everything without being changed by what it reflects. I call a Brahmana one who has gone past this muddy, dangerous, difficult way of delusion and wandering, who has crossed over, gone beyond, who is meditative, desireless, undoubting, unclinging, and peaceful. I call a Brahmana one who here has abandoned sensuality, who would go forth homeless, in whom sensuality and being have been destroyed. I call a Brahmana one who here has abandoned craving, who would go forth homeless, in whom craving and being have been destroyed. I call a Brahmana one who has abandoned human bonds and gone beyond heavenly bonds, who is released from all bonds. Released from all bonds, not just the obvious chains, but the subtle ones too. Not just free from addiction to harmful things, but free from addiction to good things used badly. Not just beyond earthly attachments, but beyond spiritual attachments, beyond even the attachment to being free. I call a Brahmana one who has abandoned delight and displeasure, grown cool, without acquisitions, a hero who has conquered all the worlds. I call a Brahmana one who knows the passing away and rebirth of beings in every way, unattached, awakened, well gone. I call a Brahmana one whose course is unknown to devas, spirits, and humans, whose taints are ended, an arahant, whose course is unknown. You can't track their path because they're not following any pattern you recognize. Not random, but free. Not breaking rules arbitrarily, but responding freshly to each moment, instead of running programs. I call a Brahmana one who has nothing before, behind, or in between, one who has nothing and clings to nothing. Nothing before, no past to defend or regret. Nothing behind, no future to anxiously control. Nothing in between, no present to grasp. Just here, just this, just now, without the weight of any of it. I call a Brahmana one who is a bull, splendid, heroic, a great sage, victorious, desireless, bathed, awakened. I call a Brahmana one who knows previous lives, sees heaven and hell, has reached the end of birth, who with higher knowledge has perfected perfection, a sage. This is what the Buddha saw under the Bodhi tree, his past lives, the whole cycle of birth and death, the way suffering perpetuates itself, and the way out. And in seeing it completely, he became free from it, completely. But notice, the Buddha isn't describing himself as unique, as impossibly other. He's describing qualities, states of being that are available. These 40 definitions aren't meant to make you feel distant from awakening. They're meant to show you what it looks like, what to aim for, what's actually possible for a human being. The person I've been describing, they weren't famous, weren't special by worldly measures, didn't claim any titles or positions. Just someone who had walked the path far enough to embody what the path teaches. And meeting them showed you, this is real. This actually exists. A human being can actually become this. The Buddha's final teaching, given to his disciples as he lay dying, be lamps unto yourselves. Be refuges unto yourselves. Take no other refuge. Don't wait for a teacher to save you. Don't look for salvation outside yourself. The path is here. The work is yours. The freedom is available now. Everything described in these verses, the purity, the peace, the freedom from bondage, is your potential. Not someday, not in some other life, not reserved for special people. Now, in this body, in this life, exactly as you are and where you are. The summit isn't somewhere else. It's here, waiting for you to arrive. Three hours ago, you began listening. Now you're here. Something may have shifted, or maybe nothing seems different at all. Both are fine. These teachings don't demand immediate transformation. They settle slowly, like sediment drifting to the bottom of still water. A student once asked their teacher, "I've heard all the teachings. What do I do now?" The teacher said nothing, just sat there, present and quiet. The silence itself was the answer. These words are companions you can return to whenever you need them. Not instructions to memorize, not tests to pass, just reminders of what you already know, somewhere deep down. The path remains. Walk it when you're ready. or don't walk it at all. The path doesn't need you, but it's there if you need it. If it feels right, leave one word in the comments, just one, for the next person who arrives here. Let them know they're not alone on this path. May you be peaceful. May you be free. May you be happy. May all beings everywhere be free from suffering. May all beings find the end of craving. May all beings know the peace that doesn't depend on anything. The Dhammapada doesn't end. These truths keep speaking across centuries, across cultures, across the distance between the Buddha's time and yours. We just pause here. Rest now, if you need to. The teachings will be here when you return.